Today, if you visit Mongolia, you'll find something remarkable. In a world obsessed with skyscrapers and smartphones, the Mongolian steppes remain largely unchanged. Herders still follow their animals across endless grasslands. Children still learn to ride before they can properly walk. Families still live in felt tents called gurs, moving with the seasons just as their ancestors did 800 years ago. It's a peaceful place now. Tourists come to experience the silence, the vast open sky, the simple rhythm of nomadic life. Modern Mongolia is known for its hospitality, its preserved traditions, and its stunning natural beauty. The descendants of history's greatest conquerors now welcome visitors with fermented mare's milk and stories told around evening fires. But step closer to those campfires. Listen to the stories the elders tell. They speak of a time when these same gentle steppes shook the world, when Mongolian horses carried riders not to peaceful pastures, but to the gates of Baghdad, Beijing, and Budapest, when the sound of Mongolian war drums struck terror into the hearts of emperors from Korea to Hungary. These quiet herders are the children of warriors who made the earth tremble. The peaceful grasslands that now offer rest to weary travelers once echoed with the war cries of armies that conquered half the known world. Around 800 years ago, a single arrow whistles through the morning air. It strikes its target with deadly precision. Within hours, an entire city of 500,000 people lies in ruins. The year is 1258. The place is Baghdad, once the jewel of the Islamic world. The archer, a soldier in the army of a people who, just 150 years earlier, were nothing more than scattered tribes herding sheep and horses across the frozen steppes of Mongolia. This is not a story about conquest. This is a story about transformation, about how a group of nomads who couldn't read or write built the largest land empire in human history, an empire that stretched from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to Vietnam, an empire that connected east and west for the first time in centuries, an empire that changed the world forever. But empires, like arrows, follow a path. They rise, they soar, and eventually they fall. The Mongols didn't start as conquerors. They started as survivors. Picture the Mongolian steppes in the year 1160. Endless grasslands stretch to every horizon. No cities, no farms, no roads, just grass, wind, and sky. The temperature drops to 40 degrees below zero in winter. In summer, it can reach over 100 degrees. This is not a place for the weak. Here, scattered tribes fight over water holes and grazing land. They raid each other's camps, steal horses, and kidnap women. Life is brutal and short. Most children don't live to see their 5th birthday. Those who do learn to ride before they can walk properly. They learn to shoot arrows while galloping at full speed. They learn that mercy is a luxury they cannot afford. Into this harsh world, a boy is born. His name is Temujin. His father is a minor chief of the Borjigin tribe. When Temujin was 9 years old, his father was poisoned by enemies. The boy's tribe abandons his family, leaving them to starve on the steppes. His mother, Holun, keeps her children alive by digging for roots and catching fish with her bare hands. Temujin learns early that the world owes him nothing. He kills his own half-brother in a fight over a fish. He's captured by enemies and forced to wear a wooden collar like an animal. He escapes by hiding in a river until his captors give up searching. By the time he reaches manhood, he has survived more hardships than most people face in a lifetime. But survival isn't enough for Temujin. He has a vision. He dreams of uniting all the Mongol tribes under one banner. His friends think he's crazy. The steppes have been divided for centuries. Why would proud warriors bow to a young man with no army and no wealth? Temujin starts small. He makes alliances with other outcasts. He recruits men who have nothing to lose. He offers them something no Mongol leader has ever offered before: loyalty based on merit, not birth. In his army, A shepherd's son can become a general if he proves himself in battle. This idea was revolutionary. Slowly, his following grows. He wins his first major victory against the Merkits, the tribe that once held him prisoner. Then he defeats the Naimans, then the Karites. Each victory brings more warriors to his banner. Each victory proves that his vision might not be so crazy, after all. But Temujin faces his greatest test in 1201. His childhood friend, Jamuka, raises an army against him. Jamuka has more men, better weapons, and the support of established chiefs. The two armies meet at Dalan Baljut. Temujin's forces are outnumbered 3-1. The battle is a disaster. Temujin's army is crushed. He flees into the mountains with just a handful of loyal followers. Many of his allies abandon him. Some join Jamuka, others simply disappear back to their tribes. It seems like the dream of Mongol unity has died on the battlefield. Yet something strange happens in defeat. The common warriors who fought for Jamuka begin to desert him. They've seen how Jamuka treats prisoners. He boils captured nobles alive in cauldrons. He cuts off the heads of enemy leaders and displays them on poles. The warriors realize that Jamuka rules through fear, while Temujin leads through respect. One by one, they slip away from Jamuka's camp and make their way to Temujin's hideout in the mountains. They bring stories of Jamuka's cruelty. They bring information about his plans. Most importantly, they bring hope that the dream isn't dead. Temujin rebuilds his army. This time, he's smarter. He doesn't just recruit warriors. He recruits entire families. He offers protection to women and children. He creates a society where everyone has a place and a purpose. His camp becomes a refuge for anyone tired of the endless tribal wars. In 1206, the Mongol chiefs gathered at a great assembly called a Kurultai. They have a choice to make. They can continue fighting each other until they destroy themselves, or they can unite under one leader. The choice seems obvious, but it has never been made before. The chiefs debate for days. Some argue for Jamuka. Others support different candidates. But gradually, a consensus emerges. There is only one man who has proven he can unite the tribes. Only one man has shown he can turn enemies into allies. They raise a white banner made of 9 yak tails. They proclaim Temujin as Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler. The scattered tribes of Mongolia have now united as one nation. The Mongol Empire was born, but becoming Genghis Khan is just the beginning. The steppes can only support so many people. The tribes are united, but they're still poor. They still struggle to survive the harsh winters. They still fight over limited resources. Unity has solved one problem, but it has created another. What do you do with 100,000 warriors who have nothing left to conquer at home? Genghis Khan looks beyond the steppes. To the south lies the Jin dynasty, one of the richest empires in the world. Their cities are filled with gold, silk, and grain. Their armies are large but soft, used to fighting behind walls rather than on horseback. To a nomadic leader with a unified tribe and nothing to lose, they look like the perfect target. The Mongols' first major campaign began in 1211. They cross the Gobi Desert and strike at the Jin frontier. The Chinese expect barbarian raids, not organized warfare. They expect the Mongols to steal some cattle and retreat back to the steppes. They don't expect what actually happens. The Mongol army moves like nothing the Chinese have ever seen. They travel light, living off mare's milk and dried meat. Each warrior has multiple horses, so they can ride day and night without stopping. They communicate across vast distances using smoke signals and mounted messengers. They strike without warning, then vanish before reinforcements can arrive. But the Mongols face a problem they've never encountered before: cities. On the steppes, there are no walls to hide behind. Victory goes to the fastest and strongest. But Chinese cities have massive stone walls, defended by thousands of soldiers. The Mongols are masters of the open field, But they know nothing about siege warfare. Genghis Khan does what he always does when faced with a problem. He adapts. He captures Chinese engineers and forces them to build siege weapons. He learns about catapults, battering rams, and undermining walls. He studies how cities get their food and water, then cuts off their supplies. Most importantly, he learns about fear. The Mongols develop a reputation for ruthlessness that becomes their most powerful weapon. Cities that surrender are spared. Cities that resist are destroyed completely. Every man, woman, and child is killed. The buildings are burned. The walls are torn down. The very ground is salted, so nothing will grow there again. This isn't just cruelty, it's a strategy. Word spreads quickly about what happens to cities that fight the Mongols. Soon, many cities surrendered without a battle. The Mongols win wars without fighting them. They conquer through terror as much as through strength. By 1215, the Mongols had captured Beijing, the Jin capital. The city that once housed over 1 million people is reduced to ash and rubble. The Jin emperor flees south, abandoning half his empire. The Mongols have proven that no wall is high enough, no army large enough to stop them. But Genghis Khan isn't satisfied with conquering China. He has tasted victory on a scale no Mongol has ever imagined. His warriors have seen wealth beyond their wildest dreams. They've discovered that the world is much larger and richer than the steppes of Mongolia. Why stop at China when there are other empires to conquer? The next target lies to the west. The Khwarezmid Empire stretches from Iran to Central Asia. It's ruled by Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, who considers himself the greatest ruler in the Islamic world. He commands an army of 400,000 men. His cities are protected by walls that have never been breached. He has no reason to fear a barbarian army from the distant steppes. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan to the Khwarezmid city of Otrar. It's a peaceful mission, carrying silk and silver to establish diplomatic relations. But the governor of Otrar, suspecting the merchants are spies, has them all executed. Their goods are confiscated. Their heads are sent back to Genghis Khan as a message. The Khan's response is swift and terrible. He assembles an army of 200,000 warriors. They cross the mountains and deserts that separate Mongolia from Central Asia. They appear at the borders of the Khwarezmid Empire, like a storm from nowhere. The Shah's army is larger, but it's spread across dozens of cities. The Mongols concentrate their forces and strike at one target at a time. They capture Otrar first, the city where the merchants were killed. The governor who ordered their execution is killed by having molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. City after city falls to the Mongol advance. Bukhara, one of the greatest centers of Islamic learning, was burned to the ground. Samarkand, the jewel of Central Asia, surrenders after a brief siege. The Shah's army melts away as soldiers desert or switch sides. The great empire that took centuries to build collapses in less than 2 years. The Shah himself flees to an island in the Caspian Sea, where he dies of despair and exhaustion. His son tries to continue the fight, but it's hopeless. By 1221, the Khwarezmid Empire had ceased to exist. The Mongols have conquered territory stretching from Korea to the Caspian Sea. But conquest brings new challenges. The Mongols are nomads. They don't know how to govern cities or manage trade routes. They don't understand taxation or administration. They're warriors, not bureaucrats. How do you rule an empire when you don't know how to rule? Genghis Khan solves this problem the same way he solved every other problem. He adapts. He keeps the local administrators who know how to run things. He adopts the best practices from every culture he conquers. Chinese engineers built their siege weapons. Persian scholars manage his finances. Arab merchants handle his trade. The Mongol Empire becomes a melting pot of cultures and ideas. The Silk Road, the ancient trade route connecting east and west, flourishes under Mongol protection. Merchants can travel from Venice to Beijing without fear of bandits or corrupt officials. Ideas, technologies, and diseases spread faster than ever before. Paper money, invented in China, reaches Europe through Mongol trade networks. Gunpowder follows the same route. So does the compass, printing, and dozens of other innovations. The Mongols don't just conquer the world, they connect it. But empires built on conquest face a fundamental problem. What happens when there's nothing left to conquer? What happens when the warriors who built the empire want to settle down and enjoy their wealth? What happens when the sons of conquerors prefer comfort to combat? Genghis Khan dies in 1227, possibly from injuries sustained in a fall from his horse. His empire is divided among his sons, as is Mongol custom. His third son, Ögedei, becomes the Great Khan, ruler of the unified empire. Under Ögedei's leadership, the Mongols continued their expansion. They complete the conquest of the Jin dynasty in China. They invade Europe, crushing the armies of Poland and Hungary. They capture Kiev, the greatest city in Eastern Europe. They reach the gates of Vienna and the shores of the Adriatic Sea. For a moment it seems like they might conquer all of Europe, but then Ögedei dies suddenly in 1241. The Mongol generals abandon their European campaigns and return to Mongolia to elect a new Great Khan. Europe is saved by a stroke of luck. The Mongols never returned in force to the west. Instead, they turned their attention to the south. Mongol Khan, Genghis's grandson, becomes the new Great Khan in 1251. He launches simultaneous campaigns against the Song dynasty in China and the Abbasid Caliphate in the Middle East. The Mongol war machine, refined by decades of experience, operates at peak efficiency. In 1258, the Mongols captured Baghdad, the capital of the Islamic world. The city that has stood for 500 years is destroyed in a week. The Abbasid Caliph is executed. The House of Wisdom, the greatest library in the Islamic world, was burned. So many books are thrown into the Tigris River that the water runs black with ink for days. The destruction of Baghdad marks the high point of Mongol expansion. They control more territory than any empire in history. Their domains stretch from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean, from Siberia to Southeast Asia. 1 in every 4 people on Earth lives under Mongol rule. But the empire is too large to govern effectively. Communication across such vast distances takes months. Local governors become increasingly independent. The unity that Genghis Khan forged begins to fracture. The empire splits into 4 separate khanates. The Yuan dynasty ruled China. The Ilkhanate controls Persia and the Middle East. The Golden Horde dominates Russia and Eastern Europe. The Chagatai Khanate governs Central Asia. Each follows its own policies and pursues its own interests. The Mongols face another challenge. They're vastly outnumbered by their subjects. In China, there might be 1 Mongol for every 100 Chinese. In Persia, the ratio is even more extreme. To maintain control, the Mongols must either rule through terror or win the loyalty of their subjects. Terror worked during the conquest phase, but it's not sustainable for governing. You can't terrorize people into being productive farmers or skilled craftsmen. You can't terrorize them into paying taxes or serving in your army. Eventually, the Mongols must choose between remaining foreign conquerors or becoming part of the societies they rule. Different Mongol rulers make different choices. In China, Kublai Khan embraces Chinese culture. He builds a new capital in Beijing. He adopts Chinese administrative practices. He patronizes Chinese art and literature. He becomes, in many ways, a Chinese emperor who happens to be Mongol. In Persia, the Ilkhans converted to Islam. They marry into Persian noble families. They adopt Persian customs and language. Within a few generations, they're more Persian than Mongol. But assimilation comes at a cost. As the Mongols adopt local cultures, they lose their distinctive identity. The fierce warriors who conquered the world become comfortable administrators. Their children grow up in palaces, not on horseback. They learn to read and write, but they forget how to shoot arrows from a galloping horse. The military advantages that made the Mongol conquest possible begin to disappear. Their enemies learn Mongol tactics and adopt Mongol weapons. Gunpowder weapons make heavy cavalry less effective. Professional armies prove more reliable than tribal levies. In 1368, the Ming dynasty overthrew Mongol rule in China. The Yuan emperors flee back to Mongolia, but they never recover their former power. In Persia, the Ilkhanate collapsed into civil war in 1335. Local rulers carve up its territory. The Golden Horde fragments into smaller khanates that fight each other more than they fight external enemies. By 1400, the Mongol Empire had effectively ceased to exist. The descendants of Genghis Khan still rule in Mongolia, but their domain has shrunk back to the original steppes. The largest land empire in history has lasted less than 200 years. What went wrong? How did an empire that seemed invincible collapse so quickly? The answer lies in the very qualities that made the Mongols successful in the first place. The Mongols were nomads. They were used to moving constantly, adapting to new situations, and living with uncertainty. These qualities made them excellent conquerors, but empires need stability. They need permanent institutions, established laws, and predictable succession. The Mongol way of life was fundamentally incompatible with the requirements of governing a settled empire. The Mongols were also a tiny minority ruling vast populations. They could maintain control through military superiority, but only as long as they remained militarily superior. Once their enemies learned their tactics and their own military skills declined, they became vulnerable. Finally, the Mongols were victims of their own success. The wealth they gained from conquest made them soft. The security they created made their military skills unnecessary. The peace they imposed made their subjects prosperous enough to challenge their rule. Yet the Mongol Empire's collapse doesn't diminish its historical importance. In less than a century, the Mongols created the first truly global empire. They connected civilizations that had been isolated for centuries. They facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies on an unprecedented scale. The Mongols introduced paper money to the Middle East and Europe. They spread Chinese innovations like printing and gunpowder to the West. They brought Islamic astronomical knowledge to China. They created a postal system that stretched from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean. They also spread diseases. The Black Death, which killed 1/3 of Europe's population in the 14th century, likely spread along Mongol trade routes. The Mongols' global connections had global consequences, both positive and negative. The Mongol legal code, the Yasa, influenced legal systems across Eurasia. Mongol religious tolerance allowed different faiths to coexist peacefully. Mongol meritocracy challenged traditional aristocracies and opened opportunities for talented individuals regardless of their birth. Today, Mongolia is a small, landlocked country with fewer than 4 million people. Ulaanbaatar, its capital, has about the same population as the Mongol army that conquered China. The descendants of the world's greatest conquerors herd sheep and mine copper in the same steppes where their ancestors once planned the conquest of the world. But the genetic legacy of the Mongol Empire lives on. Scientists estimate that 1 in every 200 men alive today carries the Y chromosome of Genghis Khan or his close relatives. The Mongol Empire may have lasted only 2 centuries, but its biological impact will last forever. The rise and fall of the Mongol Empire teaches us that no empire, no matter how powerful, is permanent. Geography, technology, and culture all change over time. The qualities that make a society successful in one era may make it vulnerable in the next. The Mongols conquered the world by being different from everyone else. They lost it by becoming too much like everyone else. The boy who was abandoned on the steppes became the man who conquered the world. The tribes that fought over water holes became the rulers of the continents. The empire that seemed eternal lasted barely 2 centuries. This is the story of the Mongols, a reminder that in history, as in life, nothing is impossible, and nothing lasts forever.